In the morning when I rise, give me Jesus.
Good morning. So Jesus said, take swords with you. Now, I don't know what he meant, because I know that he did not mean violence is going to be the answer. We know that particularly because shortly after that, Peter took a sword and cut off a guy's ear, and Jesus said, Peter, put that thing away. And then Jesus healed the ear, put the ear back on, and healed it in a moment. And so I don't know for sure what Jesus was saying to the disciples, but I know what he's saying to us. We have a sword, and Paul tells us in Ephesians, it's the sword of the Spirit, the Word of God. And so we rise up, absolutely, with a sword, the sword of the Spirit, the Bible, and we speak truth against the lies of the enemy, that we might walk as victors in truth instead of being tempted into following the lies of the enemy. Well, that's what we're going to talk about today, temptation. We're in Luke chapter 22, and in verses 39 and 40, Jesus is leaving what we call the Last Supper, and he's going to the garden to pray. He came out and he proceeded, as was his custom, to the Mount of Olives. And the disciples also followed him. When he arrived at the place, he said to the disciples, pray that you may not enter into temptation. So, I want to talk about temptation today. Don't enter into temptation. Temptation will come because there's an enemy and he hates you and he wants to do everything he can to drag you away from the Lord. And so he tempts you away from God. But we need to see in James, it's chapter 1, and in verse 13, we're told this: let no one say when he is tempted that I am tempted by God. For God cannot be tempted by evil, and he himself does not tempt anyone. And so, every time temptation comes, whenever it comes, from wherever it comes, it's coming from the enemy. It's coming from the evil one. But here's what God does. He gives you a way out. I want to take you to 1 Corinthians chapter 10, and again it's verse 13. And this verse I have heard so terribly misunderstood. Let me read it to you. No temptation has overtaken you but such as is common to man. And God is faithful, who will not allow you to be tempted beyond what you are able. Now, I've heard that said, that God won't tempt you beyond anything that you can handle, but God's not the one tempting you. Let no one say when he's tempted that he's tempted by God. No, God's not the one that's doing bad stuff, and God's not the one dragging you into bad stuff. But here's how God gets in the middle of it, and here's how God sees to it that you're not tempted beyond what you're able. But with the temptation, God will provide the way of escape also, so that you will be able to endure it. See, Satan brings temptation, but God brings a way out. And so, take the way out. If you don't take the way out, then you're the one that's letting yourself be tempted beyond what you're able. God will always, in every temptation, give you a way out. Many of you know that Cheryl and I used to minister in prisons. And I would ask the guys in prison, before you got into whatever it was that got you locked up, did you hear a voice that said, here's the way out. Don't follow into it. Don't go into temptation. Jesus said to the disciples, pray that you will not enter into temptation. Do not enter into temptation. But if you do, then you're the one that has allowed the temptation to overtake you. God bless you. The one who takes the way out that God will always provide, so that you can walk in victory away from any temptation. I look forward to being with you again tomorrow. We'll talk some more about what happens in the garden as Jesus is praying. I'll see you then.
Give me Jesus. Give me Jesus. can have all this world, but give me Jesus.